Welcome everybody to 52 Living Ideas. Today is an amazing meetup. We're going to be talking about improv today. All right. And we have Mike and Maxine. It was originally just Mike's show, but Maxine said she has been around as long as improv or even more. So couldn't resist giving, taking this great opportunity of hearing Maxine talk about improv. So what we're going to do is that first part is going to be led by Maxine. She's going to be telling us the story of improv. She's going to involve Mike and anybody else. Everybody else is fair game, but it's Mike is definitely in the hot seat or the really nice seat, and then at some point, the baton will move over to Mike. And Mike will be the primary person leading things, but he will call in Maxine. And after that, we're going to go into breakout rooms. Mike has some incredible exercises, core exercises that you can practice. And then you get to come back and talk about your own experience of improv and this particular meetup. So with that, let me hand it over to Maxine. Maxine, floor is all yours.
Okay. How do I get bigger on the screen? Am I on it now?
You are full screen, full HD. Yes.
All right. Thank you. I can't tell. All right. Years ago, there were two kinds of actors. There were classically trained actors. You had the British acting school, and that carried over here, and there was a lot of rigidity, and that's the way it was in America at that time. There was a lot of rigidity, but then came Stanislavski, and he said, look, this is not realistic. What are we going to do to fix it? And I thought of two books that you will love to read. The one that Stanislavski wrote is My Life in Art. And that is a fantastic book because he takes you through all the methods that he invented to make acting more realistic. And then when you went for a job, they'd say, well, are you a stage actor or are you a Shakespearean actor? I mean, they wanted to know if you were doing that stiff stuff, which didn't bring any results. And of course, I went from opera into Shakespeare, so I was very rigid. And it took me years with lots of improvisation to break the bad habits. Let's say they're bad habits. So that when you pick up a piece of script and they say, read the script, and you see that people are saying, I hate you, and their thumbs are coming up. Well, who says that? When you say, I hate you, do your thumbs come up? I mean, or I love you. How many people say, I love you? No, you're usually eating with spaghetti hanging out of your mouth and you're saying, oh yeah, honey, I love you. It's okay. I mean, or you say to your kids while you're giving them a smack in the side of the head, I love you. I mean, but you have to find a method to get there, and improvisation is a method. And if one improvisation doesn't work, well, let's go to another improvisation. And you have to, one thing, do it very relaxed. You have to be very relaxed when you go to do this. But anyway, the group theater evolved and thought, well, many people invented methods to get more flexibility into these improvisations. You had Uta Hagen and Herbert Berghoff and Lee Strasberg, and that's where I picked it up with Lee Strasberg, because he would never let you say a line without doing an improv first. The lines were nothing without something under them, moment to moment acting, and that's what the improvisation helps you do. You never get to say the lines till you do everything improv. Now, I worked with the Shakespeare Festival. That's the way they did it. Of course, now we're going back to the way it was before Stanislavski. They're just picking up lines and saying, oh, how are you today, or whatever. And nothing looks real. I mean, I am on the nominating committee for the television Screen Actors Guild television program. They keep sending me all these TV shows. I hate them all. They're awful. None of the people are using any decent acting, and they're saying, oh, Meryl Streep. Well, she's the only one left doing it. Everybody else is, well, there's a few, but no one. And they're giving them Academy Awards, and they're not believable. This will help you be believable. Okay, so how do we do it? Well, we have different ways of doing it. We have substitutions. You substitute one person for another. It's 5 senses. You have taste, touch, smell, hearing. Each one of these things has to be taken care of in an improvisation before you can add the words. You can't add the words if nothing's under them. In other words, if you're going to be in a scene where it's very cold outside, you can't go like this and say it's cold. You have to work it and say, what does it feel like when it's cold? Do you feel it on your neck? Do you feel it on your face? Do you feel it on your, and then before you know it, you're shivering, and you can put the lines on top of it. My God, it's cold outside. Oh, but you can't just say it's cold outside without using an improv. Well, this could pertain to life. You can do your improvs. And there was a guy I was teaching that said, without you, I could not have eaten my Thanksgiving dinner. And I said, what? And he said, during dinner, I announced to my in-laws I was divorcing their daughter. And I would have never gotten through that dinner if I hadn't done an improv on a substitution. I mean, it was, you see how you can use it? You can, well, anyway, I don't know if you have any questions.
Wonderful, wonderful. Folks, let's do one thing. Let's throw it to Mike. And Mike, go ahead.
I'm going to just go home now, Maxine. I have nothing I can answer. I'm just going to go home.
Without your improv.
So my world of improv started as a young, I would say teenager musically. I was a drummer as a kid. And I have an older brother and sister who grew up in the tail end of the 60s. So I grew up listening to all the bands that were playing at Woodstock and Watkins Glen. So the first drummers that I heard were from the Allman Brothers, which was a Southern rock jam band. They were famous for their improvisation, but what caught my ear as a kid was they had 2 drummers. One of them was very staccato, kept firm time. His name was Butch Trucks. The other was Jaimo Johansson, who had a jazz background. So Butch Trucks would keep this very strict time, these very staccato fill-ins, and Jaimo would give these jazz embellishments to Southern rock jazz music. I was fascinated by that. What I tried to do as a drummer was sound like both of them at the same time, which was very hard to do. The drum teacher I had at the time was training me classically, because I thought at the time I was going to become a studio drummer. And in order to do that, you have to be able to play everything. You have to sight read, play any genre of music, and not only play it, you have to instantly adapt with the other musicians, much like an actor who can have a script, but the script does not exist in the ether. You are now on stage with real human beings. So I was experiencing the same thing as a drummer. How do I mimic these two players who have completely different sounds at the same time? And then I was fortunate enough to get into a band that was doing Grateful Dead covers. Now, if there are any Grateful Dead fans here, that is a cult, and that is a genre. I see all the waves, and that is a genre of music that is played. We had a guitar player who sounded just like Jerry Garcia on the guitar, but the other musicians, my brother was a blues harmonica player, would sing blues and play the blues harp. We had the bass guitar player who was more into the Police, who gave more of a punk, hard driving bass line. The other guitar player was a folk guitarist. Me playing the drums, I was influenced by drummers like Steve Gadd and later Dave Weckl, these phenomenal musicians who had more of a funk fusion feel. And I couldn't let that go when I was playing Grateful Dead covers. And there was one song in particular called Eyes of the World. The Dead did this song. I used to start the song with a drum intro that Chuck Mangione used in the song Feels So Good. Half of the audience thought it was heresy. What is this drummer doing? What are you doing, man? And then I would have other drummers that would say, wow, man, that's really, really cool. All I wanted to do was improvise with the music. Now, as a drummer in that genre of music, you do not have the freedom to kind of run all over the tunes. You and the bass player are joined at the hip. You are the rhythm section. You're keeping time. But the band would jam and change keys occasionally. They would change tempo very often, which is very hard to do live. Like we're live here tonight. This is just a meetup presentation. But when you're performing or presenting, not knowing what's coming next, it gives you, for me anyway, it gives me this feeling of exhilaration and stage fright at the same time. And when I mix the two, it's fantastic. The more I mess up, the more mistakes that I make, and I make so many mistakes, even as a drummer. But once I got over the risk-taking aspect of being willing to let the band take these songs in different directions, it was amazing. It was so much fun. Flash forward, I worked on Wall Street, I had mentioned in the last meetup. And then when I left, I became a chess teacher. And I've been teaching chess for 30 years. And so much of what I do depends on improvisation. Because when I started teaching, there was no chess curriculum. We got contracts in schools here in New York where they said, look, we have gifted and talented programs, for example. We have some really smart kids. We're doing archaeology, we're doing mythology, we're doing language arts, we're doing mathematics, we're doing all of these subjects out of the classroom at a much higher level. We're going to let you come in and teach chess, but you have to connect the game to the subjects these kids are doing. At the beginning, I was like, how am I going to do this? Chess is such a technical game. How am I going to connect chess to all of these other subjects? And then it hit me. I'm going to teach chess the same way I learned to sound like both of those drummers. I'm going to improvise, trial and error, and I'm just going to make it cohesive. Did it work right away? Absolutely not. But by improvising as a musician, and I'm an amateur musician, I haven't played seriously in over 40 years, but the whole concept and process is still deep inside of me. So when I started teaching chess, I was already over that initial stage fright of taking the risk, which was so important. So if you practice improv, and we'll do some exercises later in the evening, and I'll give you some tips that you can do some of this stuff on your own, you get a chance to create that feeling of being a little nervous or uneasy on your own, and then practice your way through it to the point where improvisation, when you're messing up, is almost as fun as when it's going really, really well. The last phase of my improv is when I actually joined an improv group. About 10 years ago, I took some classes with a group here. They were in Connecticut called World Class Indifference. And they had some really great improvisers, some who had studied in Chicago. And I was a dead beginner. Then I took about a 7-year break. And ironically, at the chess club where I was playing chess on the weekends, they started improv classes. And I took them. And lo and behold, Improv 101, I knew absolutely nothing about the art form. The same exact feeling that I was getting as a drummer, trying to combine the two different styles, the same feeling I got presenting complex chess to a group of smart kids, but through archaeology and math, all the unknown started to become known to me because there was no more risk. The only risk, in my opinion, doing improv or Toastmasters, anything that you're doing, taking risk, well, really, the only risk is not doing it. I think the worst feeling in the world is sitting at a wedding, wanting to be on the dance floor dancing, but you're embarrassed to dance. So what do? You sit at the table, you start a conversation with someone that you don't really want to have, because what do you want to do? You really want to be on the dance floor dancing, but what's in the way? That same feeling you get right before you give a presentation, or the same feeling before, you know the feeling I'm talking. We all get it in very different ways. But what happens when you cross that line and you get onto the dance floor? Now, of course, it doesn't have to be dance. It can be anything. But the whole theme of what I'm trying to say, and please remember, my dear friends, I am an amateur in all three of those phases. I could say teaching chess is different. I've been doing that a long time, and that is really where my expertise lies. But as an improv comic, I got to perform a couple of times. I did about half a dozen open mic nights. So you're not going to see me on YouTube. But the one message I have from the amateur side, take the risk. Just take the risk. Now, why is it important? This is Comprehensivist Wednesday, and I mentioned this in my intro video, that in your life, or at least in my life, and I'm finding a lot of commonality here at 52 Living Ideas, we cover so many different subjects. And what's happening is there's commonality, there's common ground everywhere. And then I realize I'm sitting in these meetups with people that know so much more about these topics, yet I'm comfortable. I'm not afraid to ask a question. For me, it was the practice of doing improv comedy, playing the drums with improvisation, and teaching on the fly that makes me very comfortable to be here with all of you. That all being said, let's do a couple of interactive exercises. I have some for you, any of you who are willing to join, and I'll explain that in a minute. But before we do, I think Maxine and I will just improv a scene for you. But we have no idea what we're going to talk about. So we're going to ask you maybe to make a suggestion of a place, who we are, and any idea of how we could start a scene together.
A situation.
Yes, folks, go ahead and type in a situation in the chat. Anything at all. All right, and then they will pick something. Pouring rain says.
But where are we? Where are we in the
give me just a second. Let me go ahead and unmute. All right, go ahead, Evanique, create a scene. Where are they on the pouring rain? In the pouring rain.
Okay, so you guys are in New York City in the pouring rain, and you just missed the bus, and now there's mud all over you because you got caught in the splash, and there's mud and stuff all over you.
Okay, and where are we trying to go? Are we?
You're trying to go to Brooklyn.
Huh? We all dressed up? Are we going to a party and we're all dressed up and covered in mud?
Yeah. You're going to a party in Brooklyn, though, so you're kind of like not dressed up like for a formal, but dressed up for, you guys are in your best like party clothes.
Okay.
And you just missed the bus that's going to take you to Brooklyn.
Okay.
If you guys could just turn off your videos. Maxine, I'm not walking in there looking like this.
You look fine. Don't be ridiculous.
Look fine. This is my favorite shirt. My grandfather wore this in the Civil War. It's,
We'll bring it out when we get there.
oh, you're so practical. What are you just
Well,
gonna one
somebody
seat
has
my
to
way?
be practical. I mean, you're not practical. I have to be practical. Oh, this damn umbrella is just not doing it. Oh,
Tell you, this schedule says the next bus isn't coming for an hour.
it's not coming for an hour.
Right here, 6:30.
Put on your app. The app, there's an app that tells you when the buses are coming. Oh,
I'm not getting any reception.
what?
I only got one bar. I knew I shouldn't have
well-
switched to Pure Talk.
Well, get under the umbrella with
All right.
me.
All right. Hey,
What?
you smell really nice.
You're not supposed to be smelling me.
My
Just
goodness,
take a look at on your app.
I apologize.
Oh, you don't have to apologize. Just don't smell me. Good grief. What do I smell like?
Petunias.
Petunias don't have a smell. My
You know,
what?
after it rains, the bus stops have that certain smell.
Yeah, like piss, not
Ah.
petunias.
I wanted to say a word that began with P. I said petunia, you said piss.
How about poop?
How about please, can we just get to the party?
You know what? I don't even feel like going anymore. I don't feel like going to a party soaking wet. Oh my
Well,
God.
Look at it this way. You didn't feel like going to our own wedding. How did that turn out? It turned out.
Oh, don't you
ridiculous.
dare go there. Are you kidding? Oh my God.
Don't leave me alone, Maxine. Please,
Oh,
I'm afraid of the
you
bus.
never want to be alone. Oh. Well,
Okay.
this umbrella is just no good. I'm soaking wet. I've got oh,
Your hair is all messed up. I told you, if you take my lead, you don't have to worry about things like that.
very funny. I don't think the situation is funny at all. I mean, who wants to stand in the rain and wait for a bus for an hour and have you make jokes?
Well, I could sit here and we could play Scrabble, but I don't have tiles. I mean, we have to do something to pass the time. A little levity.
Okay, we're gonna play a game. I'm thinking of something that I can see that's around me here.
Smog?
Smog.
Yeah, it's clearing. Can't you see?
It's pouring. What do you mean smog?
I'm trying to change the predicament. It's not working.
Oh, huh. Oh, I don't know. I'm getting so tired.
Well,
Oh.
let's be logical about this. And the Hendersons are going to be at the party, and that's a good thing because
Why?
their apartment is up for sale. And if
We're gonna buy it.
we're ready to move. The studio, we're claustrophobic. That's our problem. We're on top of each other all the time, Maxine. We
That's
need
kind of nice.
well, I'm thinking of the future of our marriage and the way things really should be.
How should they be?
Well, I learned at this meetup that I was taking, it's called 52 Living Ideas, that if you really express and think in a polymathic way, you can have anything you want.
Well, I want to live in one room with you. I don't want you running around through a whole apartment.
You've never been so forthright before.
Well, good. Maybe it's good you got stuck in the rain.
I think so. Huh? A bus. A bus. We're getting out. Oh, Maxine, ladies first.
No, you go first.
No, I insist.
Okay,
Thank you, Maxine.
you're welcome.
Hot. All right. All right. Great one. Okay, folks, you can turn on your videos again. Welcome back, folks. All right.
All right. So Shrikant, if I could, am I able to share my screen?
Yes, go right ahead.
Let me, okay. Do you see the word battlefield?
Yep.
Okay. If any of you would like to try, what I'm going to do is, if you can come on, you do not have to be funny. You don't have to be dramatic. You can talk in your own voice. You can actually do whatever the hell you want. And I'll demo this for you. I'm going to give you a word of suggestion, any word or a scene, and you just start to talk about that topic, whatever it is. Just talk in your normal voice and say a sentence. And then at some point, I will change the word. So for example, here at 52 Living Ideas, we do the Tao Te Ching. So Shrikant said to me, Mike, talk about the Tao Te Ching. And I would say, yeah, it's one of my favorite meetups. It's really challenging. I find that it centers me. And then you'll see me turn the word. And for me, it gave me the ability to locate my center. I found myself firmly ensconced in the middle, seeing both sides of an argument, seeing both sides of the weather. Sunshine suddenly became rain and vice versa. It was good for my health. It filled me with joy and happiness. I found I was sleeping better all through the night, not waking up to pee, not waking up from nightmares. That wasn't common. For me, normally I had difficulty sleeping, getting up, hearing noises in my room. It was a bit scary, but the Tao Te Ching brought me right back to where I needed to be. Now it's time for me to cut the scene. That's it. So you, if you have experience doing improv, if you don't, does not matter. Just type exclamation mark in Zoom. When I see your face, we'll all turn our videos off. When I see you, that you're, Shrikant, if you don't mind just sharing the participants, please join me. I won't be doing it with you. You can just talk about anything. When you see the word change, do your best to put it into your story. I'll give you 5 words. After your 5th word, you conclude.
Okay, how about one more addition to this? Let's do 3 words, and when somebody else types an exclamation mark, it just moves to them. They can come in.
You just have to tell the next person to come on.
Okay, sounds good. Sounds good. So folks, whoever wants to participate, go ahead and type exclamation mark. We're going to go about 3 words or 4 words, and at any point, I'm going to throw it to you. Okay, up until it's your turn, you keep speaking with those words, and then the baton will move to the next person who has typed exclamation mark. The first person up is Jean. Go ahead, Jean.
Shrikant, only one thing before I interrupt. When the new person comes on, I want to give them a different word of inspiration. So it's not the one that they see, okay?
Sure.
Okay. So Jean?
Yeah.
Your word of inspiration is bicycle.
Okay. Do you show the other word after this, or how that works?
Yeah, you start talking about bicycles,
Okay.
and then I'll put the new word up eventually.
Okay. I love bicycle. Bicycle is really fun. You know, when I learned how to ride bicycle in my middle school, I was riding this huge bicycle to school, and I cannot sit on the seat. but it was really fun. You know, there's a lot of traffic in the road, and it's making me feel I'm very brave. Luckily, I never had accident. And my best memory to ride bicycle is one night we were in Beijing and we ride bicycle. One night we decide, why don't we go to Tiananmen Square? So like 5 of us, we decide to ride bicycle all the way from Tsinghua University to Tiananmen Square, which take an hour or more. Luckily, Beijing is very flat. Now I live in Somerset in Bellevue. It's so hilly. I can hardly ride bicycle. I really miss the day I can ride bicycle anywhere, any part of the city. It's so much freedom. Do
Wonderful.
you ride bicycle?
Next up is going to be Rick.
Rick, how are you tonight?
Wonderful. How are you?
Do you see the word modest on the screen?
I do.
Okay, this will not be your word. It'll change. Your word, my friend, is pickle.
Pickle. There's nothing quite like a pickle, because if you are hungry, it doesn't seem to be the thing that you might think to reach for, because it has a bunch of things about it that seem to not make sense. I kind of wonder what its purpose is. The outside seems to be sort of hard and chewy. So if you're looking for that sort of experience, that sort of like taste, it's good for that. But once you get inside, there's seeds that don't seem to know what they're doing in there. Really, I feel like the brine is the hero. If you were thinking of having a salty experience, this is for you. But I don't know that you think you're going to have a salty experience when you reach for a pickle. So you might reach for like a cake or a cookie or something like that. But I would say this. Cupid once decided that he was going to use an arrow. See, that was not the original plan. Cupid was originally going to have pickles that he would fire. There was some sort of copyright infringement thing. So he decided, I'm going to go with just regular arrows. I have a bow. It makes sense. They go together. There was going to be this whole thing about shooting, pickles into people, and they experience other emotions other than just love. But the whole pickle thing, it was going to be kind of like a lie detector. He would shoot a pickle into you, and that would be able to tell whether or not you were telling the truth. The whole thing sort of fell apart. Santa Claus and the Easter Bunny, and they all got together. They had a Zoom meeting, and they just talked about, like, just stick with the arrow, Cupid. It'll be much simpler. People don't, really believe in you anyway. And if you shoot pickles, you're going to destroy the little bit of credibility that you have.
Wonderful. Next up is Evanique. Thanks, Rick.
Great job, Rick.
Evanique.
Evanique, your word of inspiration is school bus.
When I was little, I used to always sing the song, "The wheels on the bus go around." Sorry. The wheels go, the bus go round and round, like on the yellow school bus. And I hated that yellow school bus, though, because it was always hot in the summertime and you stuck to the seats. It was disgusting. And then in the winter, that thing never had any heat. And it felt like you were in hell. But then once you got off the bus, it was like you were in heaven. And it was amazing because you had fresh air and it didn't stink. Just like, you could run around and play. You didn't have to sit still. So, you just, like, it was more freedom getting off the bus than staying on the bus. Unfortunately, I was relieved that I didn't have to ride it that much because I rode SEPTA. SEPTA was our school bus, which is public transportation in Philadelphia. And it was such a relief to not have to ride school bus. But SEPTA had its own problems. I mean, anybody that's rode public transportation knows you can meet some of the weirdest people on earth. And, you were relieved when you got off. But then you were depressed because then you had to get back on it tomorrow morning. And then, you had to deal with people again. And, you had to, go to work or go to school. And, that wasn't the most fun thing in the world. But, after you got off the bus, you were not depressed anymore because, again, you were in the fresh air. And it was amazing. You got to talk to your friends, which wasn't actually very depressing at all if you saw your friends on a school bus, because you didn't have to suppress yourself. What you had to do is you had to express yourself, kind of like, we could get on the bus and be who we were after school. So I guess it wasn't really that bad, but
Wonderful.
couldn't be. Thank you.
Thank you, Evanique.
Very good, Evanique.
Next up is Charlie. Charlie, go ahead. And anybody else who wants to participate, go ahead and type exclamation mark. Charlie, you're on.
Charlie, your word of inspiration is snowball.
Yeah, I wanted to go out and play in the snow and make a snowball, but my friend didn't come over, and I didn't want to throw snowballs alone, but I had to suppress my feelings because he just didn't show up. I called him on the phone, and his mother said that he was out playing with somebody else. And those were really harsh words in my ears, I'll tell you, because I thought he was my friend. And I don't know what to think, where things are going anymore, because I'm now beginning to think nobody likes me. And so sometimes things will just bubble up from nowhere, and then all of a sudden I'll change my mind, and maybe people like me after all. Who knows? But I'm still, wondering about why did my friend not show up. And life isn't like champagne, it bubbles all over the place. But anyway, I'll take my cap off to him if he shows up again, okay? Because then I can really believe that he really does want to be my friend, and so that we'll be able to go out and throw snowballs and maybe make a snowman and maybe even go sledding down a hill.
Cut. Thank you. Excellent. Thank you, Charlie. Next up is going to be Jean on her bicycle. Now able to read the words. Go ahead, Jean.
Okay, so Jean, you have a new word of inspiration. Your word of inspiration is pizza.
Pizza. Okay. I love pizza. Sorry, what's this?
Oops. Just a second.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I love pizza. I think pizza have this cheese. It automatically reminds me about my childhood. All the great memories, all the delicious food. It just brings me back to my hometown. I live in an area which is pretty poor at the time, and we don't have a lot of chance to eat pizza. We only eat in holidays. So I don't know, the smell or the taste, something bring me back right to that when I was as a child. And, as a child, I have very strong character. I don't get along very well with people, but when I eat pizza, I have a good mood, and I can be friendly, and people love me to be around. I think food really brings the best out of you sometimes. And now I learn better. I can be more friendly to people, and I have a lot of friends. So even in my office where I have different coworkers, I usually get along pretty well. Actually, I like to be around people. They give me energies, and I'm glad I live in a big office. And unfortunately, because of depression, everything on hold, and our company bankrupt. So I have to be on my own. So I have my own small business right now as entrepreneur. I love it so far, but I just don't like to work alone. So I have to go out social.
Cut. Excellent, Jean. Next up is, yes, go ahead.
I'm just curious, are you on the list?
I'm not on the list. I'm, you know what? I have to be on the list. Don't I?
Yes, I definitely want you on. How about you go now?
Okay, give me just a second. Let me turn on my video. Let's see here. I have to remove the spotlight. Just a second. Hold on. Technical stuff. What is going on? Speaker, side-by-side speaker. I have to remove the spotlight. Hold on. Sorry about that. Let me see what's going on here. Gallery, spotlight. Okay, all right.
You're all set?
I am all set. Let me go ahead and spotlight myself. Okay, that's good. Yes.
Okay, Shrikant, my dear friend, your word of inspiration is windmill.
Windmill. Oh, one of the favorite things for me of all is Don Quixote and going against the windmills. See, that's what a human being is. Going against the windmill. You don't halt. You don't stop. You don't take these narrow little paths through life. You go searching for windmills. That's what life is about. I don't understand. When you have this entire broad world in front of you, why do you choose only this narrow path? We are comprehensivists. We don't dig ourselves in a little hole by ourselves, ignoring all of the world around you. Why? Why do people specialize in staying in one hole? What is there? The whole world is a carpet. It's a magic carpet. You can get on it and you can go from one place to another. The whole world, you can fly all around. I don't know what the song is, but the song from the Aladdin, that's what it is about. And whenever you see a windmill, you just make a beeline down and fight against the windmill. That's what you see. That's hitting the mark. Okay, you can always hit the mark. There are so many targets. Why focus your arrow just on one target? You have so many things. That's what comprehensivism is about, not just remaining narrow, focusing your arrow on just one hole. Look at the outer world. Don't just focus completely on your inner world. There is so much grandeur in the outer world and the inner world inside all those people. Cut. Next up is Laura. Laura, you need to turn on your video. Let's see. Laura, can you say something? Where is Laura? Okay, let's go with Marco. Marco, go ahead.
Hey, Marco, can you hear me?
Yeah.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing great. Your word of inspiration is crayon.
So I took out my box of 64 colored crayons and I started coloring in my coloring book, and I noticed that I got outside the lines and I was really beating myself up because I got outside the line, and I told myself that I really need some constraints in my life, because just because I got outside the line of this coloring book, it means I'm a total failure. And I know that that my thoughts are totally realistic, and that I know that maybe I was just being a bit of a reactor in that moment, and I was really being a little bit too hard on myself. But then I realized, hey, maybe sometimes I could just take it easy on myself and not be so harsh on myself. And maybe I could take a stand against my inner critic and not be such a so hard on myself. And yeah, and I
Wonderful.
could just be...
Cut. Excellent. Thank you. Thank you, Marco. All right, folks, now we are going to go to the breakout rooms. Can you stop sharing the screen, Mike?
Yep.
All right. Okay, let me go ahead and change the view to gallery. All right. So Mike, can you give instructions of what we are going to do in the breakout rooms?
I can. So Shrikant, it looks like there's 31 participants.
Yes.
So maybe 7 in a room.
7 in the room. Okay.
Yeah, with facilitator, or 6 in a room with a facilitator.
Okay, sounds good. I'm going to put star in the names of facilitators.
So what we're going to do is, as I mentioned in the intro video, is I take a lot of notes here, and I took quotes that some of you made, and I'm going to pick one tonight. And I'm not going to tell you who said it. I'm not going to tell you the context. All I'm going to do is give the line that this person said. So what our job is in the meetup, in the breakout room, is to work on Improv 101, yes, and, which means when you're doing a scene, you probably want to agree as much as possible as a beginning improviser to what the person just said to you. There's a fantastic video of Tina Fey with a Google engineer. If you just Google go to YouTube, Tina Fey Improv. You will see her being interviewed by an engineer at Google. And he said, let's do an improv scene. And it starts out with, he said, I've got to stop. I've got a gun. And Tina Fey instantly goes, the gun I got you for our wedding anniversary, Eric? How could you? And he says, we're not married. And she stopped him. Now, Maxine is laughing because Tina Fey instantly says, the gun I got you for our wedding anniversary? How could you? And then he instantly denies what she offered him by saying, we're not married. So then the scene instantly stops, and now she has to create something else from scratch. So what we're going to do in the breakout room is I'm going to give you the line that the participant said. Our job is to go in order. So if the facilitator can just call on people in order to talk about what this line is, who this person is, not literally, but create a character and explain why the quote was said. So here's the quote. My 6th grade teacher changed my life. That's it. My 6th grade teacher changed my life. So what we're going to do in the breakout room, going in order, the first person to speak, maybe take 2 minutes each, will give some bit of the characters, label them, you can give them a name. But when you come back, we just want to know who the person is, fictitious name, and how their life changed in 6th grade by the teacher. If you are second to speak, you cannot deny what the person that already started the character is. If the character has really long hair and a beard, and you're going second, whatever you add cannot deny. So it's a collaborative exercise. The only bit of advice I have is do not add a ton of detail, because the facilitator, if possible, will probably have time for 1 or 2 people to share the character that you created. So when you come back, you will come back with a completely improvised character who had their lives changed in 6th grade. Who, how is up to you. Is that clear enough, or?
All right, let's make sure that at least the facilitators got it. So Joe and Evanique. Maxine, of course, knows this. She does this in her sleep all the time. So what about Joe and Evanique? Do you get the exercise? Do you have any questions?
So essentially, we just ask the question to one participant, like their first, whatever the first participant is. My 6th grade teacher changed my life, and then have them.
Yeah, the first person will respond with something, but you're collective. You're like brainstorming this. So Joe, when you come back, you're going to just share what the group created.
Okay. All right.
That character. So let's say that I went first and I said, when I was in 6th grade, I fell in love with mathematics, and my math teacher caught me at the right time, et cetera, et cetera. And so already my contribution to the group is that I fell in love with mathematics in 6th grade. The next person can then add to that. So in time, by the time you go around the group, you can add, what is this person like emotionally? How did the teacher help them with their math? And remember, it could be anything that changed their life in 6th grade. Doesn't have to be funny, dramatic. It can be anything. But collectively, you're going to create a character.
Evanique, any questions?
I'm good.
Okay. All right. How much time should we give, Mike?
Maybe 20 minutes?
20 minutes. Perfect. All right, folks, I'm starting the breakout rooms now. When you come back, you get to talk about your experience of improv. There are people here who have done quite a bit of improv. You may be surprised to learn more than, I don't think anybody can have done more improv than Maxine, but maybe more than Mike. It's possible. That's possible. I don't think it's possible. But there are lots of people who have done improv. So if you've done improv, you're welcome to talk about it. Also, I would like to hear your experience about this particular experience of doing improv. Okay, so that's what we'll talk about when you come back, starting the breakout rooms now. Welcome back, folks. Welcome back. All right. All right. So it's time for talking about what you got from, what's your experience with improv and what did you get from this meetup? Why do you think this is useful? Anything. Let's start with it.
Can I just interrupt for 1 second? Could we
Please.
just have one or two of the facilitators just share their character?
Sure.
That's okay. I'm just curious to see, and I'll just share what our group did quickly. I would just love to hear somebody else's story about the sixth grader, if that's okay.
Go for it.
Any facilitator want to share what?
Yeah, I can go ahead. So our sixth grade teacher was creative in how they taught us. They made problem solving very easy, and they gave us confidence, and they still had a great humor. They used to use multiple ways of teaching us and showing us how to solve particular problems. There would always be stories that the teacher would use with word problems specifically. Let me see. And it was a crazy time because of middle school. At that particular moment in time, he was able to make everybody feel welcomed with the other students. He made all the other students be able to get along because it was an awkward time in our lives. And so he was really able to create an environment where everybody really got along. He was very understanding. And what he did is he actually taught us to be good friends by being a good friend. So then he recently visited one of us, and he was just because he was inspired to see how we would turn out. He actually had let one of the students know that he was meeting with multiple students in his class, in his math class. And he was fulfilled, but he had been diagnosed with cancer recently. So yeah, that was a pretty dark turn. But he was able to be helped how to deal with cancer by visiting his past students, and he's actually traveling all over the world at this point too. That he also brought up how he brought people back together because he was meeting with his other students, that some students were actually meeting in groups. So he brought them back together just as he brought them together years ago as a teacher. So his facilitation skills and bringing people together are still there today. And then finally we found out he was cured. So then that ended up with a happy ending. So it was an interesting journey.
Great. Nice.
I'll tell you what
Can I read one and then maybe have one other person just quickly? I'm curious to see how the characters differ. So
sure. Let's keep it short so we can have time for it. Yep.
So our sixth grade girl, her name was Helen Shapiro. The teacher that changed her life was her biology teacher, who forced her to sit next to a very nerdy boy and talk about biology, but was really talking about was some of the things you might be uncomfortable talking to a boy about in sixth grade. And the problem was this boy always smelled like peanut butter, which made her both embarrassed and blushing, and then really hungry at the same time, which led her a little bit later to have to go to therapy. And as she was in therapy, dealing with this peanut butter obsession, another memory came back of dissecting two dead frogs with the same said boy. And one was a male frog, the other was a female frog. So that whole thing erupted again at her. And she developed this little passion for cutting. And she, because of the frog, and ended up having a career in the fashion industry, revisited the therapist, and was kind of forced to dress like a bag lady and wear the same cloth that she was using in the fashion industry. And being the bag lady improved her self-esteem and brought her to the point where she actually volunteered at a peanut allergy clinic, and then suddenly found out all these years later that that whole time that she was upset during that time with the boy, she actually had a peanut allergy herself. So that sixth grade teacher took her from point A to point Z. Helen Shapiro.
Wonderful. Who wants to go next? Ebony.
I'll go. So our sixth grade teacher was Miss Sagan, and Miss Sagan would put me to task, not me personally, but one of the speakers in the room. So just gonna speak like that. She would put me to task. She would ask me questions when I would wander off. Sometimes I would wander off in the middle of class, and she would ask me questions. And she was also a very encouraging moment in that when I spoke in front of a school, an elementary school, she gave me a gift because I spoke in front of the whole school in the auditorium. In India, it was a case that you would start off with an assembly every morning before school. So then I said the poem. And so Miss Sagan also taught me to speak up for myself as a woman. She kept me she kept me focused, and she kept me and she taught me that just because I'm a woman doesn't mean I can't do anything that I want to do. So she was a very encouraging and empowering figure. And she also taught us about life. And one of the famous things that always stuck with me throughout my life was when you take life inch by inch, it's a cinch. And when you take life yard by yard, it's yard. When you take life yard by yard, it's hard. So she was just a very empowering individual who gave us all the love of learning. And she was just a very amazing woman.
Wonderful, wonderful. All right, so shall we now go to takeaways? Mike, is that okay? Mike, you're on mute.
What about Maxine?
Maxine, go ahead.
Well, I am going to pass it to Jay, who was very anxious to deliver this.
Yeah.
Excellent. Jay, go ahead.
Go ahead.
So my collective sixth grade teacher really helped me find my identity. So my sister was very smart and very thin and attractive, and she was 1 year ahead of me in school. And so every grade that I went into, my teachers would compare me to her, and my parents even told me, like, you should be more like your sister. So coming into the sixth grade, I was dieting really hard so that I could be skinny and attractive and hang out with the popular kids on the nice side of the tracks, and I was studying really hard. But Mrs. JFK pulled me aside and said, listen, there is more to life than doing what other people want for you to do. Even studying you can do too much of, right? Life is about the journey. You have to go out there and experience it. And there were some ups and downs after I took her wonderful advice. But ultimately, I am now an astronaut, and my sister is a teacher, and I have a huge crush on Mrs. JFK.
Wonderful. Mike, I just love this, the 16, I have how many is it? 1, 2, 3, 4, yeah, 16 people on video. So how about we ask some just questions and try to give very quick answers, okay? You can just go ahead and unmute, just keep your answers to like 1 to 3 sentences, okay? And we'll just go around and keep going. If we run into too much trouble, we'll have exclamation marks. All right, what do you love about improv? Why improv? Evanik.
I think it's the freedom to just say what's on your mind. When you're doing the exercise, you're not really thinking. You're just kind of like, when the word is popping up, you're like, okay, just go with it. Whatever pops in your head can pop out of your mouth within reason, of course, but it's just a freeing exercise for me.
Wonderful. Rick, why improv?
I love to see people reach their full potential, and if I can be part of it, I love that.
Wonderful. Jason, why improv?
It's like life is constantly trying to push you off a ledge, and you can either land flat on your face, or you can learn to land on your 2 feet, or be okay with landing flat on your face. Either way, you win.
Ambika, why improv?
Because it's very playful and it makes you remember things that you may not otherwise think about. It's just such a stirring of things, like instead of bubbles coming this way, bubbles are coming out.
Joe, why improv?
I agree with them, because it makes you feel like a child again. But the most important thing is it allows you to connect the dots any way you want. And it allows you to see, like, connections that you, or make connections that you wouldn't otherwise make throughout, even something like the discussion of the idea of the pickle. I thought through a whole list of things, and I really wanted to go. If I wasn't being recorded, I would have definitely have gone. But I thought of a whole slew of things, where from the idea of a pickle to how this sandwich shop should redo their business. And it's like,
Wonderful.
it's a story. It's a cool story, and it's fun.
Excellent. Jyoti, why improv?
Well, firstly, it makes the images and all the suppressed feelings very visible to you, and you feel like you are part of what is going on. Thank you. I have to leave now.
Wonderful. Jay, why improv?
Play is vital for adults as well as children, and a failure is something to be celebrated, not avoided.
Talking of adults as well as children, Charlie, why improv?
I think of the movie Big with Tom Hanks, where he's dancing on a piano. And so I kind of see that this sort of playful sort of thing is using whatever chops you have to make something beautiful and have fun doing it. So it brings out the child in me for sure.
Lloyd, why improv?
Very creative. It's very freeing, as people have said, so very enjoyable.
Sheila, why improv?
There's no downside. There's only winning. Every single thing you do is a building.
Wonderful. Jeff, why improv?
As Forrest Gump's mama always used to say, life is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get.
Wonderful. Laura, why improv? Laura, you need to unmute though.
It's the ability to change every minute. You can be something different every minute.
Wonderful. Meryl, what about you? Why improv?
It allows me to connect with other people, participate, use my creativity to take what they have and add to it.
Okay, next, let's see. Maxine, why improv?
It's another alternative. If one thing doesn't work well, then do an improv and you'll get something else.
Wonderful. Mike,
Mike,
why improv?
Children are the funniest, most creative creatures on the planet, man. And you get a chance to be like a kid again, go for it.
Wonderful. What is the most unexpected place or unusual place where you can use this tool? Where do you plan to use this tool? Where would you like to add improv in order to improve your life? Mike.
Shukran, yeah, I don't mean to interrupt you. Can you turn your non-video participant off? Because in my breakout room, there were people present that I didn't even know were there. There's probably like 6 other people here.
Oh, 6 other people. I can't see you guys. Let me see. Give me just a second. All right. Let's see. Okay, Sanjay, you want to talk about why improv?
Sure. So, I mean, improv, obviously, it brings out a side of ourselves that normally we don't allow. It lets us, show a more cohesive side of ourselves that most people don't see. Trying to think
Wonderful.
of what else.
Thank you, Sanjay. Jean, why improv?
Yeah, I found it super fun. I think it's really kind of exercise our creativity, try to connect things very quickly and make it, it's, I think this experience like Mike or somebody, he can make it so interesting. It's like a movie script because I'm a big movie fan. So the movie, you have to be very dramatic in a very short time. I think the problem we are facing, we try to tell the real life. It's not interesting. You have to make super dramatic. So that's what exercise improv, I think, we need to try to do.
Wonderful. Elif, go ahead.
I was like very inspired by the other participants' stories. Like they're creating one thing, and I'm like just like my mind flows like freely when I interact with this kind of things. I just did it actually. I never did this before, but it was super fun. I love it.
Wonderful, wonderful. Katie, what about you? Why improv?
Surprise factor.
Wonderful. Marco, why improv?
Definitely makes you feel more alive.
Wonderful. Kevin, why improv?
It's pretty impossible to the possible. And it's from nothing to something. Then that's a design the way for yourself, for somebody, for life.
Wonderful. We are in a Comprehensivist Wednesdays. What can improv do for you in your comprehensivism, in trying to access all areas, being able to integrate all areas? What does improv bring to you in your comprehensivist quest? Jeff?
Number one, instead of saying but or either or, its entire premise is yes and. And number two, it prizes questions. There are no conclusions. Every step in improv is opening a new possibility.
Wonderful. Folks, if you're eager to talk, just either you can raise your hand like this or you can raise your hand in Zoom. Laura, what can Laura, but you need to unmute in order to speak.
I always have this from, it allows for stream of consciousness, which we don't normally allow ourselves to have. And for comprehensiveness, that really gives you free reign, and you can go through to not to infinity, but allows you much more comprehensiveness.
Wonderful. Evanik, what can improv do for you for comprehensivism?
It allows you to think on your feet and to really just come up with some off the wall ideas and see what works and what doesn't.
Wonderful.
And either way, it's fine.
Joe, what do you think?
It allows us to think on your feet, but I'll tell you, I don't think I've smiled this much at a Comprehensivist Wednesdays event. And that's it. And I mean, that is absolutely critical to becoming a comprehensivist, is actually being happy and in touch with your own. And I mean, I put a video link to the scene that Charlie referred to in Big, and where they're dancing and they're like kids again. And the CEO of the company, it's such a profound movie. He has a kid come in and teach him how to be a kid again. And he owns a toy store. It's a fantastic story, but there's a lot of power. I'll speak quiet.
Excellent. Thank you. Next, Laura, you had something. Go ahead.
Oh, there was a show a long time ago, Art Linkletter. He had that show with the kids, and they always did all that kind of stuff. I remember, I forget the name of it, but it was sort of about the remarkableness of children.
Thank you.
What they do. So we should, no, but the nice part about this kind of thing is what we did bring in was humor. We generally aren't funny in our other roles. And humor is a really good thing. So we should
Thank you. Next up is Mushki, followed by Mike, followed by Charlie and Jason. Mushki.
For me, improv taught me I can be less inhibited. It teaches me how to be more disinhibited and to actually talk before I think, which normally I think so much. So this is healthy for me to just be and not judge myself. And I didn't know what was going to come out, and I had to be okay with that. So that was very healthy.
Wonderful. Next up is Mike.
I think humor makes people approachable for me. So at Comprehensivist Wednesdays, I can approach and talk to people where I am way over my head, but because it's humorous, to me, it just makes people approachable.
Wonderful. Charlie, what do you think improv does for comprehensivism?
Yeah, one of the people that I loved the most who was amazing when it came to improv was Robin Williams.
Oh, yes.
Many of the skits that he would do were around the situation where you got stuck in a tunnel, okay? And there's a joke about, oh, I see the light at the end of the tunnel, and then you find out that it's a train that's coming right straight towards you. And so lots of times you get stuck in a conversation and you feel like you're in a tunnel and the train's coming right at you, and you want to have a way to break out, okay? And so being able to shift into something else, to change the direction of the conversation suddenly, and I think that is a really useful skill to be able to do that.
Yeah, it's the multiple perspective model that CJ keeps talking about. It's just you're jumping all around and you're looking at the same thing from multiple perspectives. Next up is Jason, followed by Jean. Jason.
So I'm sort of new to the comprehensivist model of being. I've attended one group so far, but I've been doing improv for about 7 years now, really thanks to Rick. One thing I have learned mainly from Rick is one of the other cores besides yes and, it's that improvisation is listening to what the other person is saying, it's caring about what they say, and it's about reacting not to what your inner dialogue is. It's reacting to what actually is being said. It's reacting to the actual situation. And until I started doing improv, I had no idea how much internal dialogue was going on when I'd be talking to a person. Let's say I'm talking to Michael, and Michael's being a comprehensivist, right? You have to be able to learn from others. And if Michael is trying to tell me something about chess or musical improvisation or the Allman Brothers having 2 drummers, like I have to be listening to him. And when am I not listening? It's when I am busy planning on what I'm going to respond about. And if we are, as a society, constantly working on how we're going to respond and what we want our position and our story and our opinion to be, then we're not going to be learning from each other. So it is trust. Improvisation is trusting that I have worked on my own mental machinery, that I can listen fully and be present with the person in front of me, and trust that I've developed my brain enough to then respond in the moment. I don't have to really sit and plan out my next statement. I can just be present and then come out with something that makes sense.
Wow, that was profound. That was profound. I think it's a huge point, because what happens is that most people are really not aware of other people and other people's context. And improv, though it seems like a very simple thing and a fun thing, it is very profound, because it is making yourself open to the other person. And as Maxine was saying, right? I mean, it's not words. So even like all the great artists, actors, it's not words. It is the feeling behind the words. So you kind of have to dig deep inside you, and you have to actually relate to the other person. And then the words can ride on the top of that. It is it's the point about digital and analog. What happens is that most people think digitally, they think sequentially. This is a way of filling out the entire context of life, an entire context of experience, yours and theirs, in order to enrich whatever it is that you're doing. So it's profound in so many different ways. Jean, and then I'm going to call on Rick to elaborate on this point of what improv can do for people. Jean.
Yeah, I think the person earlier mentioned it's quite interesting, because I notice myself sometimes I have to prepare how I respond and have a hard time to listen. So I think it's actually help us both aware of what other people are saying, and at the same time tap to our subconsciousness So we can respond intuitively instead of like use our mind to calculating. And also I think the inner child, bring out our inner child so we can be so creative and fun. I think that's really important. You know, when we grow up, our inner child usually repressed, so we're no longer fun anymore. So this improv can bring our childish back. I really love it.
Wonderful.
I think I'm going to set up a class.
Excellent. Rick, what do you think? What can improv do for people?
So this is also lovely. Thanks for giving me a chance to say a few things. And Jason,
Please.
Of course, much love. Thanks for giving me, those props. So I think it's improv is the beginning of a really interesting conversation that I think people don't think that they have time for, but I really feel like, what do you have in front of you that is more important? Because I think that we a lot of times live our life with a lot of urgent things in front of us, and it's difficult to sort of snake through the urgency to get to the things that are important. And so one of the things I want to lift up, which is a huge precept of mine, is listening is an act of love, pure and simple. People don't need you to have an answer when they reach out to you because they want to talk to somebody about a problem. They want you to listen to them. And so the sounds that you make and the way that your face is shaped when people say something to you that they want your love from gives them something that they cannot get anyplace else. It's the thing that makes strangers into friends. It's the reason why we love other people, because we can have that connection. And I think in the times that we're living in right now, with isolation being such a high situation for so many of us, we're all even more yearning for some connection, and Zoom provides a lot of that. And I think really give that more of a chance if you feel like you're in kind of Zoom burnout mode, because I've been able to have improv experiences where many of them where I feel like I'm in the same room as people that are literally all over the world, people in Germany and other places. And I think it's because, accepting right now when I'm kind of like speechifying a little bit, I try to make room for the other person to feel like I care about what they're about to say to me. I might not have that experience. I might not even necessarily agree with them 100%, but listening to other people's experience, and it's so funny because I have noticed that since I've been doing improv, I first learned how to do this with strangers and then started applying it to people that I thought I knew, and found out a bunch of things that my family shared with me that I might not have known otherwise. And I think the last point that I just want to kind of make, which I also think is really important, is we as human beings, as creatures, I think surround ourselves with news and information that we already know, because it makes us feel good that what we think is what we're then hearing, right? So if you turn on whatever news show you watch on TV or listen to or podcast or whatever, it probably won't surprise you for me to say you're listening to something that agrees with what you already think. And I think the challenge and the idea of listening is that opening yourself up to another viewpoint, and that it won't destroy, you won't explode into molecules when you hear somebody else's point. And so, following along that logic, doing this like unprepared magnificence that I've witnessed tonight, from people that didn't expect that they were going to be doing it. I mean, it's like the curtains pulled aside and I got to see your wonderfulness in a way that you probably don't know that you showed us, but that we as people that are seeing it see how amazing other people are. And we start to see these threads that connect us all together. I just, there's nothing else like it. I just think it's literally the end all be all.
Wonderful. Thank you, Rick. I mean, this is great. So there are several things. I mean, one part of it is I want to focus on the yes and principle and talk about it at that level. So that's a very profound principle, because what it is saying is that you're actually acknowledging the existence of the other person. See, the thing is that other person's consciousness you do not have direct access to. So you kind of have to give them space to express themselves. And then you build on that. I think that's a very profound way of expanding your perspective, because it's a way of stepping into another person's shoes and seeing what it looks like, and then building on that. And when it is mutual, then what happens is that you have this virtuous cycle going on, and it can be pretty amazing. Mike, what do you think? Why do you think yes and is a core principle?
It is, I think it goes back to listening. As an amateur, I mean, I'm so impressed with some of the people that showed up here tonight and the amount of experience that are in these windows that I'm looking at. But yes, and if you really take it to heart, just absolutely forces you to listen, because you start to be pre-programmed to just embellish and continue what your partner has just put on the table for you. You know, I know the pros here, that they'll say you've been given a gift or an offer from someone in improv, and it's really up to you to kind of, yes, and I thank you for what you just gave me. Now I'm going to just turn it into something else, but it still contains what it is that you gave me. I'm not going to change it into something else. We're just going to kind of get it to widen. So I think in any aspect of your life, improv can only help. It just increases your ability to really hear what somebody just said.
Maxine, you've had a chance to work with really amazing actors and personalities who are creating incredible experience for other people. How did they do it? You know, what is it? What kind of, what do actors bring to the table? How do they actually show us such deep things? Go ahead.
Well, one thing we didn't mention, you have to be very careful when you are doing an improv, because you don't want to get too close to the edge. There is an exercise called a private moment, where you go back into your life 7 years ago and you either improv the most wonderful thing that happened to you or the most awful thing that happened to you. And you take that improv and put it down under your lines. Well, you have to be very, very careful. Now, Strasberg used to call it sensitivity. And we had a lot of people in that class with a lot of sensitivity. And you had to be very careful. And you had to make sure you tuned in on the person that you were improving. You didn't want to drive them over the edge. You had to be more aware of the rest of your surroundings. So I think that was very important.
Wonderful, wonderful. Now, I don't know if anybody is up for it, but we can do a very quick, very short exercises. We can, two people can pair up, and we can do at most, each person can speak at most 3 sentences. So it will be, people will give us situation. And for example, if Mike and Maxine are doing it, so Mike says something first, it can be 1 sentence to 3 sentences. Maxine responds to it, okay, about that situation. Again, 1 sentence to 3 sentences, and then Mike responds back. That's it, very short. And any 2 people can volunteer for the exercise, and anybody can recommend any situation. So let's try that. And let's start with Mike and Maxine. So are there any situations? Go ahead and put anything in this situation. Mike, you go first, then Maxine, and then back to Mike. Very short. And then anybody else who wants to volunteer. Situations, please. All right. You're picking up laundry, Mike. Mike, you need to unmute.
Ms. Maxine, my clothes are really, really making me itch.
Well, if you wash them, I think they feel better.
Nobody told me I had to use water. Thank you
Well,
for
you
the
really
advice.
shouldn't. There's a water shortage.
Cut.
Find
No,
it.
that's it. That's it. Just one. Okay, and then we'll go to the next person. Who would like to try? Rick, you want to demonstrate it? Somebody? Anybody else is a volunteer? Laura, you're the other volunteer. Go. Laura, you need to unmute first.
I want to do it.
Okay. The situation, folks, keep on typing in situations. Okay, and I'm just going to assign them. The situation is hospital. Rick, go ahead.
Have you been to the hospital lately? Joe?
Come on, Mom,
Joe?
it's not-
Yeah, have you
It's
been
not
to the
funny.
hospital?
You know, I just.
Oh, you, picklehead, what are you talking to me for? Oh, it's supposed to be me and you?
Okay. All right. Let's. What we do is that when we speak, because of Zoom, two people can't speak at the same time. So we'll have to adjust that. Okay. So it's going to be Jean. Is there? Do I have another volunteer? Joe. Okay, Joe and Jean. All right. A paramedic talking to someone from a car accident.
Oh, again, Rick.
Okay, just a second, Laura. Okay, it's going to be Jean. So Jean goes first. You're a paramedic talking to someone from a car accident heading to the hospital. Go ahead, Jean. 1, 2, 3 sentences.
Hi, are you okay? Can you see my finger?
No, I can't, but I'm blind. So I
Okay.
don't understand. Of course I can't see your finger.
Okay, that's
Are you
good.
teasing me?
No, you are in a car accident. You have concussion.
I
So
know I
want to
really
make
shouldn't
sure.
have a license. It's awful. I mean, but I'm legally blind and they still give me a license.
Wonderful.
Now I'll go to the hospital if they can cure my blindness.
Wonderful. That would be a nice accident if it cured your blindness. Wonderful. All right. Okay. So actually, this exercise I like very much. The other thing I wanted to say about improv, I really like improv. I have participated quite a bit in New York. First thing, it does many things at many levels. So firstly, you get into your body more. We tend to kind of hold our body in a very restricted way. So one of the things that improv does is that it actually loosens you up. And it's really there is a connection between your body and your mind, your emotions. So something simple as doing kind of physical exercises together is a great way of kind of freeing you up. The other thing about improv that I really like, and which is I think crucial for comprehensivism, is that it loosens your ideas up. We tend to get locked into certain ideas and don't think beyond them. This is a way of explicitly going around. All right, so we're coming to the end of this. Any comments about this, Mike and Maxine? This was fantastic. Thank you so much. This was a great way. Great addition. And at some point, I think we can actually do an improv thing. It's a good change of pace for everything that we do. Joe, go ahead.
I just, just the value of this and how much fun it was. We were talking about civilizations and their futures on Sunday. Like there's nothing more deep than that. But then today we're laughing. I think that's really the human experience. I really think that this is fantastic.
No, and it is connected in the sense that you really need to be laughing. You need to be kind of expressing yourself from your core. You have to express the feeling of joy. You have to remember what you are like a kid.
Yeah.
And all of that is crucial for the future of civilization, because if we lose that, we actually lose a lot, lose everything. Ambika.
Can we all together laugh for the whole world for a couple moments right now, please?
All right.
What's that?
Wonderful. Wonderful idea, Ambika. Excellent. On that note, thank you very much, everybody. Good night.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Good night. Bye.